Give us an introduction to the Socialist case against the EU.
Okay, thanks Liz. Just to explain first of all, what the Trade Union Socialist Coalition is, because there's a 20-city tour that is taken. Now that doesn't mean we're only going to have, someone says, can I have a meeting in another city? No way, we've had 20, that's a lot. So, we want to have as many as possible, and there's other campaigns that are ongoing as well. But the Trade Union Socialist Coalition was really formed, actually a very important moment, in 2009 European elections. It was felt after the struggle of the workers in Lindsey, the oil refinery in North Lincolnshire. Then there was a feeling that we needed in that election, I feel like this was the new Labour government, that we needed a working class voice in that election, and that struggle really brought home to an increasing number of workers what the EU was all about, that it was being used to drive the race to the bottom, to drive workers' conditions down, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And there was a coalition, if you like, an alliance put together called No to EU. It wasn't our choice of words, I can assure you, but the prize was there was an opportunity to link up with the RMT, Bob Crow. I think we all miss Bob within the movement. The General Secretary then of the RMT sadly now passed away, and we took our place in that, also with other left forces as well. And out of that came really the Trade Union Socialist Coalition that has been standing in elections. Now I'm a member of the Socialist Party, there are other forces, the RMT is in TUSC as well. And I'm just going to have a cheap advert, the National Shop Stewards Network. This conference is on July the 2nd. I recommend you come along to that event. That is going to be one of the first big public events after the result of the referendum, and God knows what we're going to be facing at that stage. Just let me say at the start, by the way, because I think I've heard a number of debates now, we are not against Europe. We don't want out of Europe. We want out of the European Union. Those two are two totally different things, and I'm going to describe that in a minute. Because what do we see as Europe? Well, I know what I see. I see the struggle of the working class across Europe. I see the incredible titanic struggle of the working class in Greece last year. I see the struggle of workers across that. The general strike that has been announced in Belgium for later this year. The incredible movement that has taken place in France, not like the other side of the world, but literally in France, that no one knows about in Britain unless you're on social media, because the Labour government, the Socialist government, is bringing through what they call them labour reforms, i.e. attacking workers' rights, making them easier to sack, attacking the working week that has been won. Comrades, inevitably in this debate, which I think is being deliberately confused on the media, and I think has confused some on the left, my starting point is a simple one. It's an age-old phrase, but foreign policy is the continuation of domestic policy. And what does that mean? Well, I tell you what I think it means. If I'm in conflict with the employers at home, if I'm in conflict with the big business politicians at home, why should it be any different when you transfer that onto a European stage? If I am against David Cameron and the Tories here, why should I be any different to 28 David Camerons and people of that ilk in the European Union? Instead, what we've seen this week is the sight of Osborne, Ed Balls and Cable campaigning jointly together for the Remain side. And even worse, a couple of weeks ago we see Sir Brendan Barber, the ex-General Secretary of the TUSC, writing a joint letter with Cameron about the benefits of staying in Remain. What that now means is that of the three union leaders who were probably most responsible for the ending of the pension strike at the end of 2011, when 2 million workers took strike action, which I believe could have really forced the Condem government back at that stage, two of those union leaders have now been knighted by Cameron for services to trade unionism. I actually think it's for services to the Tories and stopping that particular strike. But you really can't believe it, can you? You know, have Labour learned anything from the Scottish referendum? In the elections to the Scottish Parliament, Labour was third in Scotland. Now, coming from South Wales, I can assure you, I know Drew is from Scotland, the idea that Labour could come third behind the Tories is absolutely incredible. And the main reason for that is because in the Scottish referendum, they lined up in the better together. How can you be better together with the Tories in anything? But to line up with them in that campaign when they're absolutely hated in Scotland, going back years to the poll tax and further in the past. And here we have Labour politicians campaigning with the Tories. How can you be better with George Osborne, what he has done to the working class people over the last 5 and 6 years with this austerity programme? And we should say from the very beginning that it is a real mistake, an unfortunate, tragic mistake, unfortunately, of Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell not to campaign for a leave in this election and on an anti-austerity, anti-privatisation, pro-nationalisation platform in this election. And not just themselves, but the trade union leaders as well, the vast majority of whom are campaigning for Remain. And the reason why I say that is because we would now be talking about a totally different referendum campaign. You know, the language of this referendum campaign would be about anti-privatisation. It would be about anti-austerity. It would be about pro-nationalisation, about saving the steelworks in South Wales and elsewhere because of putting all that into public ownership. And really, I'll even pose this question: would Boris Johnson be in the Lead campaign if Corbyn had led the Lead strategy from a pro-worker standpoint? I think it is questionable, and really they should have stuck to their guns. And the reason why I say that is because it's well known that Jeremy Corbyn is at the very minimum is Eurosceptic, to say the least. His whole record is against the European Union. But the truth is, when he got elected, the Blairites put a gun to his head, and unfortunately on that and some other things he has retreated. And you know, for instance, it's come out now that Ed Balls asked John McDonnell for permission to campaign alongside George Osborne, and incredibly John gave permission for Ed Balls to do that. It is absolutely outrageous and a massive mistake. And really what you've got here from some of these politicians and the trade union leaders and some comrades on the left is a sort of lesser evilism in reality. Is this, rather than making the starting point the interest of the working class, then what they're doing is they're doing it from the basis of, well, what is the outcome? Could the outcome be slightly better from a point of view of what will happen afterwards? And therefore you end up actually, whether it's said out, it's actually said publicly, but in reality what the comrades are saying is, well, Cameron's not quite as bad as Boris Johnson. Michael Gove is worse than Osborne. You know, what a way to approach that from a trade union movement that has 6.5 million members, a Labour Party that we told correctly has doubled in size over the last year. Surely we should have bigger ambitions than having that. And I've heard some of them argue that we can't argue for a Leave strategy because it'll result in the Tories being strengthened, particularly the right. Matt Rack is reported on the FBU website. Unfortunately, I don't think Matt agreed with Remain before, but he's got that position at the moment. And he's quoted as saying on the FBU website, the outcome of a Brexit vote is likely to lead to a change in a Prime Minister. And we could end up replacing one old Etonian for another. The person most likely to gain from a Brexit vote would be Boris Johnson. And that's one of Matt's rationale for having a Remain position. But let's be clear about it. If there's a defeat for Cameron, he will be ejected as Prime Minister. In fact, it's highly likely that you would have a split Tory government, that you would have a general election, and you could have a Corbyn government. You know, that is probably one of the more likely scenarios in this election. The Tories are at each other's throats, and it would be a major defeat for the Tories. And these comrades, unfortunately, have absolutely no confidence that the working class can play an independent role. We're talking about a Tory government that was only elected by 24% of the electorate in the first place, and of course, as we know, virtually on a daily basis now, have gone from one U-turn to another. I think the most recent figure is that there's been 20 U-turns or retreats by the Tory government. I think they're only now waking up to the fact that they've only got 12-seat majority. And really, those arguments are the mirror of some of the right-wing trade union leaders who argue, well, one employer is better than the other. You know, I can hear the arguments of some of the unions in the steel industry at the other. And I'm just asked one of the, any comrades over here who have that view, would you argue, for instance, that it's best not to have a strike because a strike could lead to a worse chief executive than the one you've got now? Well, it's a little bit like that particular argument. The figures from the Electoral Commission show that Citigroup and Morgan Stanley have donated 250,000 each to the main Remain campaigns. Two other US banks, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan's, have donated $500,000. And our position is that the EU is a continuation or even an extension of the EEC, the common market that Britain entered, don't forget, under the Tory government in 1973, and was opposed by a majority within Labour and the unions at the time, particularly the left, including Tony Benn and including Jeremy Corbyn at the time, because as now, the EEC and the EU now is a bosses club representing the interests of big business in an era, at that time at least, when the working class was on the march and fighting internationally for workers' solidarity. You know, that was the period of the mass strike in France in 1968, the mass strikes in Italy of 1969, and the mass strikes in Britain. And when you look back, by the way, the SDP that split from Labour in the early 1980s to try and split Labour, actually, when Labour was moving in a left-wing direction, one of the main pillars for the SDP, the likes of Dr. Death, David Owen and all those, Shirley Williams, was the position of the EU, of the common market, because they were opposed to Labour's position, which was to come out of the common market. But actually, if anything, the class character of the yeah, boys, come in, grab a